What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again, and on this episode of Joker Does a Buff, we're looking at the newly released Thorn. In a game where we have stupidly oppressive weapons like Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten, and some would argue Chaperone, and others that are just hyper competent like Last Word, Ace of Spades, pretty much any meta viable pulse rifle, this is the weapon Bungie decides to overbalance? Really? Really? Really?
Yeah, week 2, you're going to start your journey to Thorn. I cannot wait to complain about people with Thorn as I'm holding Thorn.
Yeah, in its current state, that's not happening. Not even once. Not even a little bit. In fact, that's probably the only thing funny about what he had to say. Thorn is weak. Obtained through an overly grindy questline that takes even the best players hours upon hours to complete and leaves you feeling hollow and empty after your first couple of Crucible games because you're like, wow, I wasted all of my time trying to get Thorn, and now that I have it, I find out it fucking sucks? Wow, thanks Bungie. Fuck me, right? That is undoubtedly the worst part of all of this, the feeling of getting loot, questing for loot, and you're like, oh man, yeah, I put all this time and I finally got this really awesome looking sounding gun. And of course it has to be good, it took such a long time to get. And then you take it for a spin and it sucks. Not only is Thorn horrible, but the quest to get it is terrible. It's not worth your time or effort. In fact, if you want to run around as a dredgen and have a cool gun that actually can do something, you're better off with Malfeasance, which is a guaranteed 5-shot kill at most ranges and is the single best DPS primary in the game. In fact, really, Malfeasance's only issue is that it could use a bit more range just for consistency's sake, and high caliber rounds because staggering yellow health enemies to stack up the damage to explode on them, because damage over time is awesome, would be really, really useful. Thorn, on the other hand, is virtually outclassed by every meta weapon in the game. Yes, it has some interesting potential. On paper, it's a 150 that can 3-tap, if the stars align and everything goes right, but Luna is a 180 that can 3-tap, Ace of Spades is going to outdamage and outrange it every time, Ace of Spades is also top tier competitive on PC at least, and is vastly easier to get. You can sleepwalk your way through that quest, and then there's always Last Word, which does Last Word things. Statistically, Thorn is just okay. On console, 150 and 140 rate of fire hand cannons really struggle because of recoil, and Thorn seems to suffer this painfully so. There also seems to be a significant amount of flinch while getting hit while using this gun, making gunfights even more annoying. On top of that, the recoil direction says 100, so it should be straight up and down, but it still feels like it pulls slightly to the right, and you have to correct by pulling it to the left, which again, can be annoying. Combining all of these flaws with mediocre range, and we get a weapon that perhaps, maybe, just maybe, might have been somewhat viable in Destiny 2 Year 1 when everything was shit, before Luna, before Ace, before a dozen other things, but here it's just overbalanced and arbitrarily weak. And there's really no reason for this. After all, we have weapons currently running around in the Crucible that are just as bad, if not worse, than Destiny 1 Year 1 Thorn. And to be entirely honest, I think there's a bit of hypocrisy coming from the more competitive players of the community who did everything they could to get Thorn nerfed Year 1, but have no problem with Luna's Howl or Not Forgotten. And before anybody says anything, I have mine. I'm just saying, Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten, they stagnate the game. They stagnate what Bungie can create for weapons, because nothing can be better than Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten because they're Crucible pinnacle weapons and it's such a hard and long grind to get them. Yeah, well, something's gotta give. They can't be the kings of the meta until the heat death of the universe. And to be clear, to be 150% clear, for those people that think I'm yelling,
Nerf Luna, nerf Not Forgotten,
I'm not. I'm saying what Bungie should do is make other things on level with them like they did with Service Revolver. Well, if you get the right perks. And Thorn could be one of those weapons, because the quest, oh my god, that quest is a nightmare. It is a drudge. It is boring. It is tedious. It is not fun. And one step can have you playing the Crucible for hours upon hours upon hours for days and weeks. I actually know some people who got to the quest step where they need to get 500 kills, and they're like, yeah, no, fuck that. If I get it, I get it. If it's now, then it's now. If it's 3 months from now, and it just happens organically because they continued to carry the quest, well, they're like, okay, I'll do it then. But this grind? Fuck that, and fuck Bungie. So it's not like this quest isn't worth having a very powerful weapon rewarded from it. It just doesn't reward one. But, rant aside. First, Thorn is an exotic, so it should feel exotic. Everything about Thorn is about killing Guardians, so everything about the weapon should be honed for that task. Second, if I had my way, Thorn would be a 110 rate of fire hand cannon, but for the sake of this video, we're buffing Thorn in its current 150 rate of fire state. Now, if we look at the stats, the first thing that I would do is take its pathetically low base range stat of 40 and double it to 80. This would actually take Thorn back to its D1 counterpart when Send It was the go-to perk on the weapon. I'd probably also increase the stability, but I think I would do that for all 140s and 150s across the board by somewhere to 10 to 15 points for starters, and then go from there if we need to make more adjustments. Or, you know, Bungie could just fix the way hand cannons recoil on console and bring them more in line with PC, but hey, fucking details. The biggest changes I would make come to the exotic perk and the intrinsic perk, Mark of the Devourer and Soul Devourer. For those of you who don't know, Mark of the Devourer does this. Rounds pierce targets and deal damage over time. Kills with this weapon leave behind remnants. This is when Soul Devourer kicks in, which does absorbing a remnant strengthens Mark of the Devourer and partially refills the magazine. What this does in terms of gameplay is take Mark of the Devourer from 2 to 7 for 5 seconds, gaining additional time if you pick up another Revenant. This additional Revenant, however, does not increase Thorn's damage over time, and it fills the magazine either full or with 4 rounds from the ether. This damage over time increase from 2 to 7 is enough to 2-shot a 5 resilience or less Guardian from full health, provided that they bleed out. That said, Ace of Spades can do something fairly similar once Memento Mori is activated. You get 5 bullets that crit for 92 damage each, and these bullets last until you reload or die. And you can chain kills with Memento Mori to keep that damage buff up indefinitely. With weapons like Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten, with all the bullet magnetism and aim assist that Destiny has, is enough to assure a kill. There's no reason why Thorn shouldn't be just as good. More so because the Thorn quest is an order of magnitude harder than the Ace of Spades questline. And weapons with obnoxiously hard questlines have a duty, have a responsibility to be good. If this was just something I went here, went there, killed a couple of things, returned, and done, and I got a free weapon, well then I wouldn't care too much. But this was hours upon hours upon hours of mindless, soulless grinding, and playing the Crucible in ways I don't actually like playing. And like I said at the top of the video, there's nothing more soul-crushing than grinding away for the better part of a day or two, maybe a week for some players, maybe even a month for some players, to finally get a weapon and go, oh, well, my whelm is certainly undered. With all of that considered, my rework to Mark of the Devourer and Soul Devourer would be something that just activates on the weapon on kill. I mean, I don't have to go around chasing Ace of Spades playing cards whenever I use Ace of Spades. I don't have to go around chasing little moons to get my power boost when I use Luna's Howl or Not Forgotten. Why do I have to do that here? Second, once a kill has been gotten, 4 bullets will magically appear in the magazine, and those 4 bullets will be capable of doing 7 points of DOT damage until reloaded or the player dies. And yes, this can be chained. Every time you get a kill, it refreshes. This might sound like I'm simply ripping off Memento Mori, and to a point I am, but you either get a timer or you get a bullet count. Personally speaking, I prefer the bullet count, and 4 seems like a decent number, plus it's what it's already given, so there is that. So the changes to the exotic perk and the intrinsic perk, along with the range increase and the stability increase, I think would really bring the weapon up without making it overpowered. I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's not a 3-tap capable 180, so there is that. But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Do you think really grindy quest weapons, really hard quest weapons, should be really good? Do you think Thorn needs a buff? Like I said, let me know in the comments below. And like always, stay frosty. Next time on Joker Does a Buff. Look, all I'm saying is why the actual fuck doesn't young Ahamkara's spine give you 2 trip mine grenades and make them stickies like they were in Destiny 1 Year 1? Hell, then the exotic might actually get fucking used! Novel concept, I know, right?